All right, we're going to change gears. Nationwide, cities are debating whether or not to allow Canadians to drink alcohol in public parks, and if so, under what circumstances. We know there are already pilot projects underway. Some places have said yes. Montreal, for example, if you're in a park and you're having a picnic. Vancouver has parks that allow it, so do Calgary and Edmonton. Toronto, though, still debating it. It's going to come up at City Council next week. So does it make sense to ease up on the laws, or does it run the risk of drunk people ruining the park experience for everyone else? Dominic, you start this one off here. What do you think?
Literally no. I disagree with alcohol being allowed in parks. It takes just a couple of people who cannot consume alcohol properly to ruin it for everyone. And I have not seen, even with alcohol not allowed in parks, that happening in the right way. So I would say no.
Frankie, have you ever had booze in a park?
Oh, well, I will say yes. I'll skip the question for now. And I will say that, I come from an Italian background and I come from a place where, in Italy, you can see alcohol everywhere, whether it's wine on the streets or beers, outside in parks. Again, it comes down to stigma. It comes down to letting the young people know, letting society know that alcohol doesn't have to be something you binge. It doesn't have to be something you drink in a back alley. It doesn't have to be something that you hide. I think that it adds to the vibrance of a city and of a population, but only if we destigmatize it.
Yeah, we've been asking people at home as well, and we're going to show some of the results. We know some Canadian cities already allow it. Maybe you live in one that does. But here's the question. Should all parks nationwide allow the public consumption of alcohol? And take a look. These are the results. 53.7% so far saying yes, 46.3% saying no. And as we continue our debate, we're going to show some of the graphics here of some of the cities, depending on where you are in Canada, what they allow, because it sort of depends. In Vancouver, for example, there are more than 30 parks that allow it. You can have booze on beaches in the summer, 7 beaches in the Vancouver area. We talked about Montreal with their picnic law. Edmonton does allow designated parks to have alcohol on a permanent basis, and on it goes. Still pending. We talked about in Toronto and Regina. Calgary does allow it, so it kind of depends here. I wonder what you think the worst case scenario could be here, Dominic.
I think so. I want to first say I would love nothing more than a beautiful glass of wine in a park. And I think that I would love for people to enjoy whatever they want. That's not my concern. My worst case scenario and concern is what is already happening. We don't even have alcohol allowed in parks, and we see many people that are struggling with mental health challenges that are also using alcohol in non-sustainable ways. We also see young people that are in parks that are not using alcohol in the right way. And so my concern aren't the people that deserve or not deserve, but are not the people that are going to be drinking and enjoying and taking care of things and presenting themselves in the right way. My concern are the people that will ruin it for everyone, and what could happen, if that isn't monitored. And if there was a system where, just as an example, alcohol was available and allowed to be out and people were allowed to enjoy themselves, and there was a system for making sure that people who can't control their alcohol were monitored, then I'd say fine. But what ends up happening when things like this are allowed is that we say, yeah, let's go ahead, let's allow this to happen, and then there's literally no monitoring of it, and things absolutely become chaotic. So I just think about the couple or the few people that are going to be in parks, that are going to be disrupting other people, that are going to leave the park, they're going to go and roam the streets after they, and I don't think we can control how people, drink, but I think that we can control access or allowing it to be in places where people are just trying to enjoy themselves.
I talked about Toronto City Council next week voting on it, and some interesting polling was done in Toronto, which shows 44% of people who responded support it, 34% opposed it. But the question is kind of interesting if you take a look. Level of support for City of Toronto allowing people to responsibly drink in parks. So that's kind of funny because they use the word responsibly, which of course takes the poll and the question in a different direction. Dominic is saying she's worried about irresponsible drinking. Frankie, are you worried about that?
I think as Dominique alluded to, the irresponsible drinkers are going to be at the parks and the beaches and wherever they want to be, regardless of if we pass this. So I think if we consider them a moot point, then we have to look at everyone else in society who is following laws and rules. And for those people, I think they should be allowed to, enjoy what I got to enjoy in Europe or in Italy, on the streets and in parks, and having that beautiful moment of being in the sun, having a seltzer or having a glass of wine. I don't think we should let a few bad apples ruin it for everyone. And I think it's going to make Toronto summers even better.
It's interesting too, Dominic, because as you're probably aware, it's an open question whether it's actually really being enforced as we speak. Again, it's a bit of a question of those pot shops before they were legalized. On the books, the bylaws say you can't drink in parks, but in practice, the police often look the other way. Maybe it's a case-by-case basis. So there is still a lot of drinking that goes on. It's just not technically legal to actually, drink, in a park right now, although, of course, that could change. Your thoughts on whether there is a possible way to do this? It seems like different cities are trying different things out. For example, if you're going to eat at a picnic table, in Calgary, you've got to reserve that table in advance. Then you can go, and as long as you're eating, you can drink. Again, the question is, are they actually really checking to make sure that people are eating? But is that something that you would be open to? As long as people eat, they can drink.
I mean, so one, I think the word responsibly is a great word to add into a sentence to be like, yes, people should drink responsibly. I think that the idea of people having food and sitting at picnic tables and ensuring that if they have food that they drink is such a great idea. Now, the reality of it is, who is going to enforce this and when will this be enforced? At Trinity Bellwoods in Toronto, when there are thousands of people all around the park, who is going to be making sure that that happens? That's where my concern is. It's not that people don't deserve it. It's not that there aren't way more people that should be able to have beers and wine and literally enjoy the beautiful parks that we have across Canada. It's the fact that we come up with these great ideas and then pedestrians are left to feel the impact of the day-to-day lack of implementation of it. So I think that the food idea is great. I just need to know who's actually going to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, good point. Okay, you can also weigh in at home as well on Twitter at CTV The Debate. Have your say before the end of the show on this. Should cities nationwide allow alcohol in parks?